value from success, growth in discovery. Golden Arrow Resources is a well-funded gold-copper exploration company with proven management and prospective properties in Chile, Argentina, and Paraguay. Golden Arrow trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange, symbol GRG, on Frankfurt, symbol G6A, and the OTCQB, symbol GARWF. For more information, visit us at goldenarrowresources.com or call Sean at 778-686-0135.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sheryl McCumsey, founder of Pesticide-Free Alberta. She now lives in Powell River, British Columbia, but she's still just as concerned about what we eat and drink and what's in it. Sheryl, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Jim.
Sheryl, how did and why did you get into this business of checking to see how clean our air is and how pure is our food?
Well, I mean, it's something that I guess I sort of paid attention to a little, you know, like a lot of people, reading in the paper, but not overly concerned about. And, you know, really, it was a personal experience that really kind of woke me up. And what happened was we had a new neighbor move in. We had been in this house for a couple of years, and a new neighbor moved in, a young guy, and he didn't have the initiative or the inclination to kind of want to look after his yard. So over a period of time, in the area where there was a garden in the back, the weeds got to be about 6 feet high. And he decided that he would spray Roundup over that entire area. And unfortunately, a lot of that drifted into our yard. And he also didn't really like to do much with the rest of his yard where he had, where there has been a lawn. So he sprayed lawn chemical, which drifted over into our vegetable garden and basically destroyed my tomato plants. So wanting to get along with my neighbor, I wanted to be very careful how I talked to him about this. So I just, we had chatted briefly a couple of times and whatnot. So I had said to him, I just wanted to mention, maybe you could let me know or we could do something about when you're spraying so that I could put up a barrier or something because it drifted over and, killed my tomatoes. And he just laughed. I was a little surprised, and he laughed and said, too bad you have a neighbor like me. And boy, that was an understatement because over the next, let's see here, I'd have to say 10 years really, this man destroyed, we lived in an ordinary neighborhood in Edmonton, very, very middle class, $7,000 worth of shrubs and plants and vegetable garden and so on that we estimated that after we started paying attention of damage to our property. That didn't include when he got a little crazy and started spraying our car as well. And we could do nothing about it. We tried city mediation right away because we wanted to try to figure out what we could do, work something out with him. And there was just nothing. He was not interested. He really was a bully, basically, and he used herbicide as a weapon. And so if you said anything to him, it got worse. So we tried talking to the owners of the house, who were his in-laws, and I guess his ex had passed away. So they had told us that they didn't feel they could say anything to him because he would probably retaliate. So we were in this situation where we would have all our windows closed and we could still smell herbicide in our house. And at one point, I developed a cough that did not go away for a whole year. And so this is when I started to research pesticides and what they do, what the herbicide damage on a plant looks like. I became an expert at what that looked like because I was seeing it all the time, what 2,4-D looks like, what Roundup looks like. And I contacted some local groups. This is how I became involved with Pesticide Free Edmonton, and there were people who had been trying to get herbicide use banned in the city for things like dandelions and so on. So I made contact with these people and talked to my counselor, talked to Alberta Environment, talked to Alberta Health, and nobody could do anything to help me out. I was stuck in a situation where this guy could spray pesticides, abuse them basically, and I could do nothing to protect myself. And putting up a fence isn't going to be enough. I mean, he was spraying a lot of pesticide all the time. And he was spraying it around our property as well. He decided one day he was just going to spray it all the way around our property. He was actually I would say he was actually had some mental health issues, but, what were we going to do about that? So over the course of time, I became a bit of an expert on what I was finding in studies and the assessment of pesticides and how they were regulated. And the more I learned about this, having a health background and having a belief that Health Canada was doing certain things, I was just shocked that pesticides weren't assessed very well in the first place, that they weren't regulated really. People, I found over the course of time, would make complaints and nothing would be done about those complaints most of the time, like probably 99% of the time. And so I worked with some people trying to get herbicide use banned in the city, and we ended up having about 28 speakers come to City Hall to speak on this issue and so on. And they did make some restrictions, but not really what we were looking for. And during that time, I had all kinds of things going on. I had a guy from a landscaping company driving back and forth in front of my place. I came out to talk to him, and it felt kind of threatening. I had phone calls and emails going to my boss that were hostile, and eventually I went to the RCMP. It was really, really a horrible thing. Because after I started to make this public, I started to feel harassed, and I didn't know who these people were. But when I was approached by a woman who lived in a county outside of Edmonton, she was told that I was kind of working on these issues in Edmonton by a personal friend, and she was upset because the city of Edmonton had been spraying chlorpyrifos by helicopter over her property for years, and she had been contacting Alberta Environment about it. And basically Alberta Environment was saying, well, don't worry, this pesticide is going to be discontinued, it's not going to be re-registered, and they won't be able to spray it at all anymore. And so when she contacted me, I thought, well, let's go talk to these guys. This was in 2014, actually. So we decided to contact the guys at the City of Edmonton about it and see if we could work out a solution or find out what was going on. And basically, she had pictures of these helicopters spraying around her property or over her property. And these guys said, well, again, they said, don't worry, we're not going to be able to spray this anymore because it's not going to be re-registered for use by Health Canada. So we're going to have to get rid of what we've got at Swan Hills for disposal. This was back in 2014. And one of the things that they said to us was that when we asked them, well, where are you actually spraying all of this stuff? Because I did a little research and I found chlorpyrifos to be a highly toxic pesticide. And also, from what I was finding, it didn't look like anybody else in Canada and probably North America were using it for mosquito control anymore. The more I learned about it, the more concerned I was. They told us they couldn't tell us where they were spraying it because of privacy reasons. And then that's when a big red flag went up for me, because on the label for Dursban and Pyrate, which are two different products that have chlorpyrifos in them, they both state that this is not to be sprayed in or around residents, schools, playgrounds, etc. And it's because it's a highly toxic, and I would say a pesticide that hangs around for 48 years in Arctic ice is probably pretty persistent. The breakdown products are also very harmful, by the way. From studies, they say that they're 10 to 100 times more toxic than the original active ingredient to a number of organisms. So in other words, it really doesn't go away, and this neurotoxin is very harmful to our nervous system. So this raised a red flag, and this is when I started to access public reports from the city clerk. I started to think about it and think, I would like to know that where they're spraying this. And what I got was hundreds and hundreds of pages of helicopter and ground applications, and on each page there would be maybe anything from 10 to 30 applications in different areas in and around the city of Edmonton. They were based on Range Road and Township, so it was kind of hard to tell where these locations were. But I have a very smart husband who's very computer savvy, and he translated those locations to longitude and latitude, and we created some maps. And then when we created these maps, we could see that they were spraying this well inside the city, even though Health Canada says to spray this in outlying areas, municipalities. Outlying areas would probably not be right in the middle of the city, I would think. And it looked like they were spraying it in one of the large parks in Edmonton. This is when I contacted a reporter. And that's when things started to blow up. Because it was clear the city of Edmonton was spraying this pesticide in a park when the label says not to. And although I also found out that there was about 6 or 7 reports made to Alberta Environment and complaining about the city of Edmonton's applications of this pesticide that I didn't even know who these people were or anything about, nothing was ever done about it. It was quite shocking. That's when I thought people didn't know how bad this pesticide was, didn't know that the city was even using it, and didn't know that the city was abusing it. And no one was doing anything about it. And that's when I realized I was on to something rather big, and the more I looked, the more concerned I was. The more I saw, wow, the health issues in Canadians have gone up in certain areas. They've gone up tremendously in a very short period of time. And we're not talking about overall numbers. I'm talking about percentages that are shocking. And then the studies that correlate with what we're seeing in animals and correlate with how much we're using in agriculture and forestry and in our municipality. And I was just shocked that so many people didn't know this was going on and how harmful this was. And this poor woman had no protection. She had, it's very hard when a helicopter comes around to get out there with your camera and get some pictures, but she got some video of these helicopters, and I'd get the spray sheets, and their spray applications be on the same day that she would tell me the dates that she saw these helicopters. So we knew that they were doing this, and they were denying it. It was a terrible thing, really. That's how I got involved. And it made me a bit of a target. A lot of people would say, I've been hearing the odd person saying that my information is incorrect. Well, I would really love to challenge anyone who says my information is correct. I would love that, because I would like them to tell me exactly how my information is correct. And then I would love to have a debate with that person, because I haven't collected incorrect information. My information comes from government documents and comes from studies. And there's lots of studies. Like in chlorpyrifos, there's 2,000 peer-reviewed studies alone on this pesticide. And it's shocking, the letters that I'd get from Health Canada, that basically they just brushed this whole thing off. Somebody should have been arrested, really, in this issue, probably, and gone to jail, but that never happened. So right now, it looks like the city of Edmonton is not spraying this pesticide finally, after many years of going to, we went to the city auditor about this issue, and the mayor was denying it on the radio that the city was using it when the city was still using it. And so either the mayor was being misinformed by the administration, or the mayor wasn't being honest with the public. I'm not sure which, but I think the city of Edmonton has finally stopped spraying this particular pesticide. But I think that people of Edmonton should be pretty appalled at what's been going on and be concerned about what might be still going on there, because they're not being transparent about what they do.
Do you suspect municipalities across Canada are doing the same thing?
I know that chlorpyrifos, from the publication that I got from years ago from Health Canada, they actually stated that they re-registered this pesticide for mosquito control at the request of Edmonton and Winnipeg, because these were the only municipalities still using it. They actually said that in their publication that goes back years ago. So Edmonton and Winnipeg were the only municipalities using it for mosquito control, and then Winnipeg sold their reserve of this pesticide back in 2014. I had the invoices, and their entomologist said it was ineffective because mosquitoes became resistant to it, and it also damaged the predators to the mosquitoes. So there was two things that it was doing that was probably making mosquito populations worse, but initially it would kill everything. It doesn't just kill mosquitoes, of course. It kills pretty much every insect. And it would also harm other animals, like in the U.S. there is a big initiative to try to remove it from agriculture entirely because it is extremely harmful to endangered species. And I'm talking about big mammals, not just, a few birds and a few insects. I'm talking about mammals, big mammals we're talking about. So if you're an applicator, like you and I can't buy this stuff. But if you're an applicator, you're required to get regular blood tests to make sure your nervous system hasn't been harmed by this pesticide. It's very toxic.
We'll have more with Sheryl McCumsey right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia and the Yukon, trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the OTCQB, symbol ABNAF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sheryl McCumsey. Why do you think governments in Canada are paying so little attention to the toxins in our food and air? Are they paid off, or are they just ignorant?
Well, I think there's a multiple answer to that question. Because it's a system problem. I mean, right now we have major system problems from COVID, right? And then we've got fires happening in the U.S. and California. And BC only produces 3% of its own food. 3%. And where do we get most of our food from? California. And with COVID, and the numbers of people that are getting sick from COVID in the U.S., including farm workers, and these fires, our system is set up right now where we have gone to big businesses. Big businesses pay a lot of money if you're a candidate, if you want to get exposure and you want to get elected. So that we kind of have a system that the more exposure you get, the more people that see you out there, they think, you're a good candidate, they vote for you. So we kind of have a screwed up system, in that big companies are kind of favored by our government for multiple reasons. To the extent now where it's really not paying any of us very well because we're subsidizing a lot of these big corporations with big money because they're not doing as well. So right now, even with this pandemic and a lot of people out of work and a lot of people stressed out like to the max, we're still subsidizing big corporations in millions and billions of dollars and all across Canada. And they are taking our resources out of this country, and we're losing jobs. So it's a huge system problem. And I don't think that a lot of politicians are very wise in that. They get elected, and they may get elected because of who helps them get there, who they kind of maybe owe a favor to. And then we have administration, who's basically, I think they're too closely aligned with what industry wants. And I think it's too easy to turn a blind eye and blame it on another department. So what happens with forestry, for example, in BC, when we say we don't want them to spray our forest, is basically they say, well, Health Canada registers it. Like, that's the end of the discussion. Well, any doctor that tells you that he's giving you a drug that maybe you shouldn't be getting, is giving it to you because it's registered, you might want to run out of his office. Like, that's a pretty lousy reason for using something, is just because it's registered. But they're not even properly assessed, like, in that we don't assess the whole product. We kind of talked about that in other, in other sessions, how things are assessed. There's all kinds of problems with the assessment process. But then we also don't regulate them. Now, if you're going to regulate something, you have to be watching how it's being used. Well, if you're in the backcountry and you're spraying a pesticide, who's watching you? Nobody. Nobody's watching you. You're out there, and so if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, you might not even know maybe that you're not doing something you shouldn't be doing, because in a crew only one person has to have training, and that's a 7-hour course, by the way. It's not like a university course or something. So what is the regulation here? Like, in Alberta, I know that there were hundreds and hundreds of reports of abuses that were never even investigated because they weren't investigated. I actually asked one of the compliance officers about that, and he says, well, the price of oil's gone down, so we can't do all these investigations. That was his answer. So this was before the price of oil really went down. This is a few years ago. So it's kind of like an attitude about where we brush it off onto another department. So it's the federal government. Okay, so that's why I got a federal petition, because so many provinces across Canada, the people are opposed to herbicide spraying and forestry. And the more you look at it, the more you realize how insane it is. And, really, we could end up with serious fires here, partly because we're going one kind of flammable tree. Yeah, maybe we have a few deciduous trees we live in there, but we're spraying to mostly eliminate them, sometimes by air. And if you see some of these areas, they look like a bomb went off. Like, there's devastation. And those trees that would prevent the spread of fire, they don't come back when they spray. These pesticides hang around for a long time. So it's a multifaceted problem, and it's going to take the public's outrage about it. And maybe that means somebody's house is going to burn down before they get pissed off about it. I don't know. But for me, really, I was a good citizen, and I cared about issues, and I voted and so on. And I was a busy person. I had young kids, and sometimes I had health issues. And then I developed a health issue basically from this pesticide, really, because I had a cough that never went away, and I'm lucky that it didn't develop into something far worse. This is when I woke up. And I think some people are not awake to what's going on. And certainly our politicians aren't really awake. They go, well, pesticides are registered. We have 350 scientists at Health Canada. And they really sometimes do not know the problems that exist. So how do people address it when they see a problem and then they see more problems? It's kind of massive. It's a little overwhelming, and it could be very depressing because, all people have to do is put a label on you as a whistleblower. We've had them. We had a couple of guys in New Brunswick who were professors or college professors who were speaking out against this. They were fired. And then they had a medical officer of health, Dr. Cleary, speaking out about looking into glyphosate. She was fired. She was actually given a $750,000 severance package. In Quebec, we had a very well-respected soil scientist saying there's too much power from the agrochemical companies in how things are determined. He was fired. We had 3 Canadian Health Canada scientists fired from their job years ago because they stood up to Monsanto's bovine growth hormone and their concerns around it. They were fired. So when a person's actually doing their job and they don't have power to stop themselves from being fired because there's power outside of this putting pressure.
Well, remember when Prime Minister Stephen Harper said he would fire anybody who worked for the federal government if they came out and released information they thought was important to the public?
Oh yeah, he did. He really did a number on all of this, and it has not been repaired. Trudeau has not repaired it. So whether you vote conservative or liberal or whatever you do, if we're not getting some kind of statement from a politician before they're elected that they're aware that this is a problem and exactly what they're going to do about it, it will not be repaired. And it's huge because it's not just affecting our health and our environment. It's affecting our jobs, our lives profoundly, and our economy in a massive, massive way. So, really this is what we call it neoliberalism. There's a name for it. There's some good books out there, written by journalists. One is called The Trouble with Billionaires. So there's some people with a lot of power in this country who are eventually, I don't know what they think what's gonna happen if they continue on this route. I mean, there's certainly people making a lot of money off of this virus, like Amazon, for example, making tons of money because people are ordering everything from Amazon. It's a huge system problem that it's a problem for us, the people. And the more I look, the more I see it in a bigger way. It's pesticides is the thing I know the best because it's the thing I've spent the most time researching. But I see how it fits into all these other problems. And agrochemical companies are pretty terrible in what they do globally. They're considered, like some of the activists in the world, but probably they kill more activists in the world than other industries do, agrochemical companies, from people who are watching that kind of thing. And so they're a huge threat, and people are afraid of them, and they have a right to be afraid of them. I mean, I feel in some ways I was threatened. And when I went to the RCMP and mentioned some people that were in one particular meeting, and they talked to some of those people in the meeting, some of this stuff suddenly stopped, which was very interesting. So, this isn't, you could say this is conspiracy. It's not conspiracy. It's the way the world works, really. It's the way money works. It's the way people make money, and it's the way people cover up problems with things that are harming us because it costs them money to change and do something different. In forestry, I have to really wonder, though, if they would save money if they would actually look at this from a different perspective. But because everything is so, people are digging their heels in, and they're so rigid in their way of thinking about this, and it's a mindset, really, then I don't know how you turn it around. I don't know if it will be turned around. I mean, I see, there's these reports saying that the loss of bees in BC is affecting our crop production. And we know the loss of bees is being affected by multiple things, but one of them is certainly the pesticides that we still have on the market that had conditional registrations, which we don't allow anymore. It's true, we don't allow them anymore. But they still have not been properly assessed. So it's pretty shocking, really, that how far will we go with this before, you feel like you want to slap some people against the side of the head and say to them, how far are you willing to take this before you're willing to stand up for the people of Canada in the way it should be, with science, with evidence. It's there. And it's crazy that we're not using it for the betterment of mankind, really.
We'll have more with Sheryl McCumsey right after this.
Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlin, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sheryl McCumsey. The onions imported from California from a particular company were rampant with salmonella. Apparently, over 550 Canadians hospitalized because of it. At least one person has died, and probably thousands of others have become sick, but not enough to go to their doctor, but certainly enough for them to notice. And I'm wondering, if there was salmonella on those onions, could they spread to the other onions in the same display?
I think it's possible. I haven't actually looked into seeing what, like I read this, but I forget what species is salmonella. Because certain salmonella species have spores and so on, but I suppose it's possible, but
I guess the biggest lesson here is growing your own stuff, knowing what's on it, or getting certified organic. Perhaps you would avoid it. And would organic produce still be susceptible to things like that?
Well, it just depends on how they got the salmonella, right? Like at what stage they got the bacteria in there, right? So if it's in the field, it's totally possible that it could happen on an organic field. But to be honest, when I've looked at that kind of thing, it happens more often with the big industrial farms that are not organic. It's the best thing, really. I mean, here, I'm getting my onions from a farm that's literally 3 blocks away from me, and I have no worries about it. I know what the farmer's doing, and so on. So,
I know we like
again,
to.
if you can develop that relationship locally, that is the best thing. And sometimes it's just not possible, right? But I think organic is safer usually, but a bacteria is a different contaminant. It isn't a pesticide, right? It could be in fecal matter from animal manure or something, right? So it's hard to say.
Is one of the best investments you can make to protect your health over the winter is get a freezer and put your organic produce in there, freeze it, and use it all year round?
I think it would be a really good idea. Yeah. I have been trying to encourage people to look at growing local food, growing a garden. Anyways, I have big concerns about what's going to happen in the next year as far as food goes. And I would start working on getting a community garden set up in the spring and start getting together with people and talking about what you're going to grow, where you're going to grow it, where you're going to get your seeds from. Try to get local organic seeds, open pollinated seeds if you can. Start planning that now. I mean, we can social distance in a field if you plan it right. And you can start looking for a place to have a community garden. I think we need to really be focusing on food security years ago. But now with this fire, I mean, it's a horrific thing that's happening. And it's interesting, too, because, I mean, it's not just climate change, but, I mean, certainly climate change is feeding into these things. But eucalyptus trees. Look up eucalyptus trees in California and how flammable those trees are and how they're not native to California, right? So here in Canada, this has been going on for a long time now. This didn't just happen last year or 5 years ago. We've been planting coniferous trees in our forests primarily for a long time now, and now we have pine beetle. And one thing I read, it's not just, you get insect infestations when you have a huge area of one kind of plant. It just is you're asking for it. And if you look at history, this has happened over and over and over again, and we don't seem to be learning this. I mean, the Irish potato famine, right? One kind of plant growing and take it out and you get huge problems. So, I mean, canola is not going to feed the world, never will, but we're growing massive amounts of it, and there's problems with it. We need to have diversity in our farms and in our forests to protect ourselves from these infestations, to protect ourselves from a forest fire that could stop in its tracks because you have a stand of deciduous trees, could stop the spread of insect infestations because you have a stand of deciduous trees. I mean, this is not rocket science. This is just ecosystems and how they work. And we've known this for a long time, and we keep ignoring it. And we can't keep ignoring it. Even, the more I learn, the more amazing all of these things are, because they're above the ground, they're below the ground. The ecosystems are in the ground too. All the ecosystems that we don't even think about that are in the soil, which are quite interesting and massive. When we spray certain pesticides, we damage that. When we use chemical fertilizers, we damage that again. And so, we need to think about our garbage differently. And so these are all systems. If everybody decides and picks one that they want to work on, and we all start working together, I still feel hope that we can turn it around. But even our garbage is not garbage. Our garbage is a resource. And if we were using all the food scraps and all of the things that we throw away in the garbage as a soil amendment, that will change things too. None of that should be thrown away. It should all be used. And we're not recycling our plastic even, right? So why are we keep producing more and more and more and throwing more and more away when we're having multiple problems from this? We're seeing plastic everywhere and everything. We got to start being intelligent and start using things in a more intelligent way.
Sheryl, we could go on for hours, but we'll chat in a month.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
My guest has been Sheryl McCumsey, founder of Pesticide Free Alberta. What are some of the other sites that people can go to if they're concerned about the issues we talked about today?
Well, Stop the Spray BC has an excellent website on forestry spraying. He's got so much good information on forestry spraying. There are other websites that focus on food, more in agriculture. But I think it's worthwhile to look at Stop the Spray BC now, because I live in BC, and right now we're talking about our forests and how they're managed, and it's right in everybody's mind with COVID and the smoke in the air right now. This is a bad thing. And I do have a petition, a federal petition, which really hasn't had a lot of attention. I'm not sure if it might be because of the process of, you get a second email that you have to confirm that your signature has gone on that federal petition. But the federal petition is E2738, and it's about forestry spraying for Canada. And I truly hope that people will take a couple of minutes to sign this petition as well, because it doesn't make sense to continue on this path, and we have other ways of doing things that work. We've known these things for a long time. I've talked to people who are working in the industry. I was talking to a logger the other day, and he agreed with me. So I hope that people will think about it and start getting to work on something, even if it's a little thing.
Thanks again, Sheryl.
Thank you, Jim.
My guest has been Sheryl McCumsey, founder of Pesticide Free Alberta. If you have any questions for Sheryl or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@housestreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @TalkDigitalNet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.